Hey everyone, I finally made it to the mid-budget version of the build. Instead of using a staff like I had originally planned, I'm still using the Foulborn Toolborn wand since it's just too good. This wand is incredible, especially for how cheap it is. My other ideas for not using the Relicash boots have gone out the window for now as well, since Malachite's Loop gives so much damage and I'm in need of damage still, and for how cheap it is, it's hard to beat. And my ideas for not using Relicash boots involved either using a staff or using a +1 power charge shield, which is hard to follow my build if you go for items like that that are really hard to obtain. So I'm just using Malachite's Loop now. I also made it to the high budget version of the build just a few hours after getting mid-budget, since I got some big loot from my boats and mappers in King's March. I think they've made more currency than I have this league. And the tree has also given me more currency this league than I have gotten from maps, funny enough. The mid-budget version of the build and the high budget are very, very similar. The high budget just has a few really expensive items in it that boost your power and AOE massively. There are not any other significant changes to your passive tree or anything else. You do drop a few nodes to fit in clusters, and that's about it. The mid-budget cost me about 22 divines in total to get everything for. The high budget was another 100 div on top of that, and it'll be even more when I can afford a Watcher's Eye and a Calandra's Touch. I'll include path of building for both, though the POB for the mid-budget version should match pretty closely with my planned mid-budget POB from the build guide video before the league started. And I should also say, that's not how much my build is worth, that's just how much I've spent, since I always craft my own gear. Which I will probably be releasing a video shortly about how easy it is to craft the gear for this build. The only difference between mid-budget and high-budget are a Watcher's Eye, which I don't have yet, Cluster Jewels, Forbidden Flesh and Flame for Forbidden Power, a +1 power charge ring, and a Calandra's Touch ring, which I may or may not use. This Cogwork ring is carrying me really hard, and I'll lose Curse on hit. So I'll have to see if getting a +1 power charge ring, or if getting Calandra's Touch to reflect my power charge ring is worth it. I'm sure it will be. I also think I'll be transitioning to Ice Nova from Glacial Cascade soon. TM. I've decided to at least stick things out with Elementalist, so I'll be doing Elementalist Ice Nova, but the items and skills and all that jazz are essentially the same on a high budget between Occultist and Elementalist. It's just on Occultist, the Forbidden Flesh and Flame that you'll want is Leech of the Primordial. On Elementalist, what you want is Forbidden Power. Elementalist does get more area of effect, which is why I'm sticking it out for now, since on Elementalist you get Art of Destruction, which is 60% increased area of effect if you're not fighting a boss or a unique enemy. Otherwise, you get 30% more elemental damage, which is also really good. And you have Leech of the Primordial, which gives increased effective buffs from your golems and resummons them, so you get a lot of AOE from your flame golem. I think it's somewhere around 60%. So you're getting 120% from these two nodes. And then you get the Forbidden Flesh and Flame for Forbidden Power. I have 11 power charges, which is giving me 66% increased area of effect. Between those three Ascendancy nodes, I have a lot of AoE. When I'm killing mobs in a map, I think my AoE is almost 400% now, along with, because of Assert Dominance that I have on these two Cluster Jewels, and Vast Power. Vast Power is giving me 50%. The second one is I'm losing out on some, because you can only have a maximum of 50% from all of your Vast Power Jewels, or Notables. But still worth it, in my opinion, to get a second one, at least until I get more power charges. And I believe I've already talked about the reasoning behind items, how to scale a build, what we're going for, and all that in previous videos, so I'll just do a quick summary in this update. You use the Relicash boots here to count as always having max power charges. That's the important line here. You want to make sure it says count as having maximum number of power charges. You don't want Frenzy or Endurance. I have unfortunately talked to a couple of people recently that bought the wrong one, so I'm spelling that out here. This lets you use Graven Secret, which this belt, if you don't have the Relicash boots, prevents you from having power charges, which kills your DPS, because you gain absorption charges instead of power charges. With these boots, you get both. Absorption charges, if you hold Alt on the belt, you recoup 12% of elemental damage as energy shield per absorption charge. I have 11 of them. That's 132% of elemental damage taken recouped as ES over 4 seconds. Pretty good. And the other stats are also good. It also lets you use Malachi's Loop. This destroys your power charges, which hurts your DPS a ton and also shocks you when you reach max power charges. You don't get shocked because you get absorption charges instead of power charges, and we're also shock immune from Tempest Shield anyway. So even if we lose Graven Secret, which we will later for either Headhunter or Mage Blood, we still won't get shocked because of Tempest Shield. And we may even try and fit in some ailment immunity later. Normally we'd also use Toolfall instead of Toolborn, which also eats your power charges, which is a third reason to have these boots, but we're not, because Foulborn, Toolborn, say that 10 times fast, is so much better. Other notable items, spells in Path of Exile scale massively with spell level up until level 30. After level 30, they scale half as much as they did prior to level 30, so going above level 30 isn't as good. Still good. My Glacial Cascade of the Fisher is level 29, so I got one more level I can fit in somewhere. That's why this Replica Dragonfang's Flight is so good, because it gives +3 to Glacial Cascade, and then the other stats are also pretty good. This chest requires a lot of strength. As you can see, I don't have that much strength, so this amulet lets me use it anyway. We use Crown of the Inward Eye here to get +1 power charge. You can get a rare, I think it's Warlord, if I remember right, Influenced Helmet that can also give you +1 power charge, or you can use a different Corrupted Helmet that gives +1 power charge. This one gives Transfiguration of Soul, Mind, and Body, which means that increases to your mana, life, and energy shield also apply to spell damage at 30% of their value, and you get 16 or between 9 and 21% increased maximum life, mana, and global energy shield. So this is just a really good helmet. Mine's not very good. I need to replace this, but I only had 4 divines left, so this is what I got. Because there are so many uniques in this build, you only have a few rare item slots, and suffixes become a premium, since you need attributes and you need resistances, and you'd like cast speed and curse on hit if you can, all of which are suffixes. Your ring prefixes are mostly worthless, which is why you look at mine, I got 2 tier 9s on there, and it doesn't matter to me because most ring prefixes aren't worth it. I'd like to get a helical ring, but those are so expensive, and I'm just going to replace this with a Calandra's Touch eventually, so I just settled with the Cogwork ring. This cost me about 100 chaos to craft. I'll include it in my gear crafting video later on. Gloves. I usually go for a lot of attributes and then resistances on my gloves, which is what I've got here. My chest, I like to get fizz damage reduction as a suffix, but I don't have enough currency to really focus on that yet, so I've got double resistance and regenerating ES. You can also get strength on your chest if you're low on strength and you don't have it on your gloves or a ring. But yeah, you're pretty much getting all of your attributes and all of your resistances on your suffixes on your rare items. And then on all of the unique items, you're stacking spell levels and power charges as much as you can. That's how you scale your damage. Why does scaling power charges increase your damage so much? So if you look here in your character window, you get 58% crit strike chance modifier per power charge. You get 3% more damage per power charge. I'm getting 6% increased AOE per power charge. I'm getting 20% spell damage modifier per power charge and 8% mana regenerate per power charge. That is a lot that you get from power charges. Some of that's from the Forbidden Flesh and Flame. For Forbidden Power, the increased AoE and increased spell damage. We're also getting some of that from Malachi's Loop that gives 16% increased spell damage per power charge. And then some of it's from these nodes here, like 8% increased mana regenerate per power charge, crit chance, crit multi, and increased damage. So we're scaling the effects of our power charges and the number of our power charges to boost our DPS way higher than we could any other way. And all of that scales multiplicatively with spell levels that increase the base damage of our main spell here. And that's how we're doing it. On top of that, we also have things like spell damage, we have crit multi, we have some other stuff. If I was going purely for damage or uber bossing, I'd probably drop some area of effect, but that hurts my soul to think about, so I'm not going to do it. And you can swap these clusters out with crit jewels to get 100% crit chance and more crit multi and do a lot more damage but have less AoE if you want to go that route. But that's the basic gist on how the build works. And that's it for my update video. As always, if you have questions or comments, leave them in the comments below or message me in game or come find me on Twitch. Thanks, and I'll catch you next time.